Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes so sweet and sexy. Have fun, enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. Not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions of lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. Is a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish and Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Machegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes sweet and sassy. Not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Hello. Hello, good evening. Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. And it feels to you like every nut job, wacko in the world is out today. And things are looking a little sideways and completely crazy. Maybe it's because the full moon is upon us tomorrow. And it's a beaver moon. And apparently it's a super moon. Remember, we were going to have 3 super moons in a row. And so tomorrow is the largest and brightest super full moon of 2025. And I don't know, I'm feeling the energy. I feel like everybody out there is crazy. And I don't want to get involved in it. And so I'm going to be here for a little while with you anyway, because I meant to do this all day. And you know how that sometimes happens is the day just gets away. The day just gets away. And so I believe it's tomorrow, according to Instagram. That's where I get all my full moon news. Hold on 1 second. And so every day is like that, says it's Steph on the Cape. Steph on the Cape. Well, we got some good news today for Kelsey Fitzsimmons, Michael Proctor. Speaking of the Cape, Steph. Speaking of the Cape, some interesting stuff that Ted Daniel dug up about Proctor being on the Cape that day that he went with Kevin Albert to the Cape, to work on that cold case. Apparently he turned off his GPS on his unmarked cruiser. And the question is why? Why did he do that? So I have questions about that. And then I can't even remember the third thing that I put on my title because, the day has been like that. It is complete full moon energy. Let's see. Good news for Kelsey, bad news for Proctor, and WTF, Devine. Oh, yeah. Ashley Banfield did a thing last night on Robert Devine testifying. And he said some insane stuff about Sandra Birchmore, which I'm going to play for you. But I'm just going to warn you that it's insane. And also some breaking news that just popped up on my New York Post app because, that's where I get all my breaking news from the New York Post because it's quick and easy and headlines only. There was a UPS plane that just crashed in Louisville. So let's just quickly take a look at that. I saw some of you pre-chatting about it. And here's what just happened a little while ago. I guess it was in the past hour because it seems that Louisville is on Eastern Standard Time. A UPS plane crashed near Louisville and Muhammad Ali International Airport in a fiery wreck Tuesday evening, officials confirmed, as a plume of smoke could be seen for miles. Multiple emergency crews, including the Louisville Metro Police Department, responded to the crash site around 5 p.m., where authorities warned there was fire and debris. A shelter-in-place order was issued within the hour for all locations within 5 miles of the airport, the LMPD posted on X. And here's a photo from the New York Post. And it says emergency crews are responding to an airport crash near the airport in Louisville, Kentucky on November 4th, 2025. Injuries were reported, but the exact nature of or how many passengers were on board the aircraft is unclear, police added. The airport closed the entire airfield after the crash. UPS also confirmed that the plane involved in the crash was one of theirs. One cargo plane with UPS was set to take off from the Kentucky airport at 5:02 p.m., according to a FlightAware tracker. It's unclear if this is the same aircraft that crashed near the airport. So prayers up for anybody who was involved in that crash or nearby, any injured or any fatalities. We're not really sure yet. That's the breaking news right now that I have for you. But the good news for Kelsey Fitzsimmons is that the full panel SJC has agreed to hear her expedited appeal regarding her bail. And so here it is. Best place to go for this is the SJC docket. Commonwealth versus Kelsey Fitzsimmons. And this is status as of 10/27/25. Here, if we go down to today's entry, 11/4/2025, they've issued an order, and the text of the order is in the notes, and I will read it to you. We did go over the initial papers that were filed by Tim Bradel with regard to this appeal to the SJC full panel. We went over the initial appeal to the single justice. We went over the single justice's decision. And so therefore, I assume that you're caught up on all of that. But if you're not, you can just go back to the playlist on Kelsey Fitzsimmons and you can read up and get caught up on all of that. I don't have a ton of time tonight because, life and children and things like that have been taking up some time lately. So let's read the order. The order is from today. Order. Kelsey Fitzsimmons was indicted for one count of assault with a dangerous weapon in violation of General Law 265-15B. A dangerousness hearing was held on August 28th of 2025 in the Essex Division of the Superior Court Department, pursuant to General Law 276-58A. In an order dated that same day, the hearing judge found Fitzsimmons to be dangerous, but released her on conditions including inter alia, that means among other things in Latin, including among other things that she abstain from alcohol and be subject to certain testing for alcohol use. The 58A order was temporarily stayed until September 8th of 2025, when an order issued releasing Fitzsimmons subject to the imposed conditions. On September 10th of 2025, Fitzsimmons moved for relief from the condition that she be subject to certain testing for alcohol use. After a hearing held the following day, the hearing judge concluded that because Fitzsimmons could not comply with the alcohol testing as ordered, her release would endanger the safety of another person or the community. Consequently, the hearing judge vacated the prior order of release and ordered Fitzsimmons held without bail pursuant to General Law 276-58A. We listened to the audio of that court hearing with Judge Kathleen McCarthy-Nyman, and it was chilling. And we heard her tone, and we heard her cut off Tim Bradel at the end while he was trying to finish arguing. And as they slammed the button on the tape recorder, we heard Kelsey Fitzsimmons crying, and I can't unhear it. It was devastating. And there, Kelsey Fitzsimmons still sits in Chicopee Women's Prison, jail, wherever she is. I think it's, I don't know the exact name of the facility, but it's in Chicopee, which is about a 2-hour drive each way to the Salem courthouse where this is being heard, or where the underlying proceedings are being heard. This is the SJC. This is, I believe, in Boston. Fitzsimmons filed a petition in the county court pursuant to General Law 211-3, seeking relief from the order of commitment. Fitzsimmons further asked the single justice to address bail de novo, release her from custody, and order that the hearing judge be recused, meaning Judge Kathleen McCarthy-Nyman. The single justice denied the petition and Fitzsimmons appeals. The case is before us pursuant to SJC Rule 221 as amended, which applies to a petitioner appealing from a decision of a single justice denying relief from an interlocutory ruling of the trial court. The rule requires a petitioner to set forth the reasons why review of the trial court decision cannot adequately be obtained on appeal from any final adverse judgment in the trial court or by other available means. Based on the record, we are persuaded that the appeal should proceed. Oh, wait, hold on. I think I have an applause button now. I think StreamYard just provided me with an applause button. So let's see if it works. Let me go back to one and we'll hear that again. Based on the record, we are persuaded that the appeal should proceed. Fantastic. Filing a petition pursuant to General Law 211, Section 3 is the proper means for seeking relief from pretrial detention based on dangerousness in the Superior Court. As Fitzsimmons has no other means of obtaining adequate appellate review of the pretrial detention order, this appeal may proceed with full briefing in the ordinary course. The parties shall confer with the clerk to arrange an appropriate briefing schedule. On October 27, 2025, Fitzsimmons filed a motion to expedite this matter, in which she requested that the court grant oral argument and expedite any hearing. The request for oral argument is hereby denied without prejudice as premature. In crafting an appropriate briefing schedule, the clerk shall give due consideration to the time sensitivity of this matter. We express no view on the merits of Fitzsimmons' claims at this preliminary juncture. And again, once again, this is good news. This is good news for Kelsey because the SJC full panel did not have to agree to hear it, and yet they did. Well done, SJC. And one of Tim Bradle's arguments is that, look, the single justice was supposed to, under the rules of the court, consider Kelsey's bail application de novo, meaning consider it anew, not just whether Judge McCarthy-Naiman exceeded her authority, but consider the whole thing in its entirety as a brand new argument and proceeding. And he argued that that's not what the single justice panel did. And so therefore, full panel, you need to hear this case. They agree. They agree that it should be expedited, and they are going to set a briefing schedule. I last checked the docket a few moments ago, and so far I do not see a briefing schedule yet. But I can imagine that Tim Bradle's office has been working on it. He probably has it ready. And so maybe, I mean, I don't know. It could be 7 days and then another 7 days for a reply, or maybe 7 days and then 3 days for a reply. And then hopefully they'll get it on the docket soon. But that is all we know at this moment. Let's see. It was actually filed. The appeal was filed on 10/27, and today is 11/4. So they, within 8 days, within seven to 8 days, within a week, they decided to hear it. That is good news. That is good news for Kelsey. And so hopefully she will be out relatively soon. And hopefully at some point, the modifications will be made to the custody order and she'll be allowed to see her baby at some point. But we also know that they've agreed on terms for the time being, that they've agreed that Kelsey will pay Justin $12 a week for child support, and that she will, as of right now, have no contact with the baby. And when her house is closed, I think they said it was going to close sometime in November, $50,000 of the proceeds will be placed in an escrow account in the name of Justin's attorney. And from that $50,000, Justin's attorney will pay Justin the $12 a week in child support, or $48 monthly. That is the minimum amount of child support in Massachusetts. And this is one of the cases to which we have redirected our outrage that we had in the Karen Reed case, one of many. And so hopefully we will see Kelsey Fitzsimmons free, at least from Chicopee, and get back to the house arrest that she was on for 48 hours before Tim Bradle brought her back into court and said, Your Honor, we'd like to amend the bail conditions because based on the fact that my client was shot in the chest at least once, maybe twice, and has undergone 5 surgeries and had such injuries as a collapsed lung requiring the insertion of a chest tube, at least 2 fractured ribs, a lacerated liver, among other injuries. It is very difficult for her to breathe into the scram device that you are requiring her to breathe into. for a sustained period of time. She can do it, but she can't do it without 4 hours of pain afterwards. And so, is there a less restrictive method that you could use to test Kelsey for alcohol, since you're considering that that is one of the requirements of her being allowed out on bail? And even though I think it was the assistant chief of probation came and testified at that hearing in front of Judge McCarthy Nyman and said, she's not in violation, Your Honor. Kelsey's not in violation. I haven't violated her. I wouldn't violate her. In fact, I saw her try and blow into this thing, and it's very painful for her. And, she could just go do the pee in a cup test randomly a couple times a week, Your Honor, whatever you want. And the judge said, oh, she can't do it? Okay, I'm putting her back in jail. It's horrific. It's outrageous. And where's the union support for Kelsey Fitzsimmons? I ask. She's a North Andover police officer. Where's the union support for her? I mean, we saw the Massachusetts State Police Union backing Proctor through everything, all the way up until, I think it was just October 25th, when the total phone extraction was done. May the beaver moon be for Kelsey. Thank you, Thunder Horse. I'll allow it. Where's the union support for Kelsey Fitzsimmons? I have questions about that. A lot of questions, because I'm not seeing it. Tim Bradle's not a union attorney. He's a private attorney. And maybe that's why she had to put her house on the market. Right? Well, he's not getting the house money. No. Please don't be confused. He's not getting the house money. $50,000 of that money is going into an escrow account that is not going to be his. It is going to be maintained by his attorney, who's going to pay him $48 a month until Kelsey is out of jail and or employed, and or there is a modification to the temporary orders. So no. Please do not be confused. Okay? Escrow is an account maintained by a lawyer that is held in trust for someone. So he's not getting his hands on that money. He can't touch it until there's further order of the court. So please do not file. All right, Steve, that's cute, but I can't allow it in my chat. So thanks for your joke, but please just be mindful in the chat. We read that decision the other day on the Barry Morphew case, right? And we know what's going on out there. And if the courts don't like your comments on a YouTube video, they can pull the cameras out of the courtroom. So we don't want to see that happen, right? Yeah. Thank you, Gal, for becoming a new member. Thank you, Gigi, for gifting 5 memberships. You're awesome and always gifting all the time. You're always gifting all the time. Thank you. Kelly Applegate, thanks for your 20, says, hey, y'all, thanks for keeping me company while I've got the plague. I'm really sorry that you've got the plague. That stinks. Going into work is like going into a petri dish. Oh, man. Thanks, Kelly, for your 20. I appreciate you. And on top, thank you for being always on top of the super stickers. And then Nate Taylor, thanks for becoming. And Kelly gifted another 5 memberships. Thank you, Kelly. And to those of you who are randomly gifted, congratulations. Hi, Mike. I'm Mike Dorado. Too tired to watch tonight, but wanted to send love. Replay, Crudier. No worries. Just remember to hit the like button whenever you come in. If you're watching on replay or if you're watching live, it's always a good thing to do because it helps the algorithm somehow. That's what they tell me. I don't really understand all these analytics that I get from YouTube, but they tell me that it helps. So thank you, Mike, for your super chat. And Holly says, thanks for always bringing us the latest with a nice smile. Please show this fabulous woman your support. She says, like and subscribe. Thank you, Holly Johnson, for your super chat. You're adorable and sweet. Thank you. And Toza, thanks for Tazo. Thanks for being here for 13 months. Tazo is a very good tea. I like Tazo tea bags. Glad to be catching a live stream. I'm glad you're here too. I'm glad you're here. And the most blessed Gigi on earth says, thank you, Melanie, for the idea of my new photo. Is that the Las Vegas Ice Cream Patrol? There you go. That is a real ice cream company that looks like an FBI truck. Thank you, Gigi. And what is the briefing schedule? Ask KLM. Well, both sides get to file briefs because the SJC or any appellate court really works on appellate briefs. And so you have to submit all of the underlying documents from the case, everything that's happened in the case so far that is bringing you to this appellate level. And so there's an appellate record, and then you have to brief your arguments or write a legal argument on paper for the court. And so a briefing schedule is basically just the dates when those briefs are going to be due to the SJC, how many copies are required, and when you have to serve it on the other side. And then if they require oral argument, which they said they're not going to decide right now, it's premature. They said the request for oral argument is hereby denied without prejudice as premature. Without prejudice means you can argue again and ask again for it. So they will decide later whether or not they want to hear oral argument on the brief or whether they just want to decide it on the papers. We've watched many an oral argument in front of appellate courts and Supreme Courts, and we find them very interesting. And so I hope that they do get to argue in front of the SJC. I remember when Karen Reed's case went up to the SJC on the issue of double jeopardy. And those were very interesting arguments. And so it is nothing more than due dates. That is a briefing schedule. Thank you for your super chat, KLM. And on top says, Godspeed, Kelsey. We are here. We are. Thank you. And God bless Kelsey, says Tracy. Thank you for your super chat. Lisa has been here for 20 whole months and said, thanks, Melanie, for all you do. Thank you guys for being here, because without you guys, I wouldn't have anybody to listen to me. I would just be yelling at the TV or screaming into this microphone alone. And really, what fun is that? Shelly Harrington became a member. Welcome. And Tracy's been here for 5 months. She's sending I love you hearts. And Queen Olive, Ruth Ann, has been here for 10 months. And she says, I've been here longer than 10 months. Girl, I know. I don't know. YouTube has a weird thing. I think if you're on like auto pay for your membership and your credit card expires or something, maybe it resets you from the beginning. I don't really know how it works. Thanks, Leave the Drama at the Door, for gifting 5 memberships. I appreciate you so much. And Tracy says, what is the connection between Morrissey and the mob and Hank Brennan? Is that a rhetorical question? I don't know. I don't have any inside information as to any connection between Michael Morrissey and the mob and Hank Brennan and the mob. I have no inside information for that and to that. So I don't know if you're being rhetorical, but I cannot confirm any such thing. I have no knowledge of any of that. Thank you for your super chat, though. And Kat Randall, thank you for gifting a membership. You're awesome. The Lion, the Witch, and the audacity of this bish also gifted a membership. Thank you. Is it a riddle? Carol wants to know if it's a riddle. I don't know. Is it a riddle? And so soon we will find out when the briefs are due. When the briefs come in, we will read them, as we always do. And appellate printing is very, very, very expensive. And so if you choose to do so, I'm going to put in the chat or pin to the chat the Give, Send, Go fund for Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Wow, it's up to $37,500. I remember when we first started covering this case, I think it was under $1,000. Canton Town meeting at 7 o'clock. Brenda should be really good. Is anybody live streaming it? Because I only have seen it live. You know, I mean, I know Canton Community TV is there, but they usually don't post it until the next day. Why is appellate printing so expensive? Because it has to be in a special font. It has to be a certain page weight. It has to be bound. There has to be a lot of copies. The record on appeal is often very, very, very thick. And there are only a very limited number of printers. And when I say printers, I mean companies who do appellate printing, and it's super expensive. Any attorneys in the chat will tell you that. Young Jerks is streaming it. Well, I prefer not to like restream their stream or Canton Chronicles stream. I'd rather have them get the views. So it's not really like a cool thing to do unless I have permission. And so, oops, well, that's not the right one. Sorry, little cupcake. I pinned your chat by mistake. And I'm trying to pin the Give, Send, Go, but it just takes me there. So just give me a second. That is why I usually do the Canton Town board meetings on the replay, because it's usually the next day by the time it is publicly posted to YouTube. Okay. Okay. Well, if you guys want to go over and watch those guys at 7 o'clock, you are certainly free to do so. That is fine with me. Okay. So next up is Michael Proctor using the kill switch on his unmarked cruiser. Let's watch. Ted Daniel reported on this last night. And many of you may not have seen it if you're not local to the Boston area. So give me a moment while I pull that up for you. And good on Ted Daniel for getting, putting on his old school reporter shoes and doing some old school reporting on things that are really important to the people in the community, right? And Ted Daniel has always been very fair to Karen Read. There are many, many reporters locally who have not been fair to Karen Read and who also have not really covered her case very much. And so, props to Ted Daniel for at least investigating this, right? All right, let's take a look. Yesterday, we covered a story. Was it only yesterday? I think it was only yesterday. When we did cover a story that he broke that said that, but it only said, what it said was that MSP troopers had the ability to kill the GPS switch on their cars, right? But now he's going to connect it to Proctor doing that with regard to the cold case that he was allegedly investigating with Kevin Albert back in July of 2022. All right. Listen up, folks. Listen up.
Nearly $70,000 a month in taxpayer money. That's how much the Massachusetts State Police spends to track troopers on the road. The GPS system is supposed to boost transparency and accountability, but 25 Investigates found it can be defeated with the flip of a switch. Here's investigative reporter Ted Daniel.
We begin this story with a name you're likely familiar with, Michael Proctor. He's the former state police detective fired for conduct revealed in Karen Read's first trial. I started looking into state police GPS tracking after learning how Proctor stayed off the radar with his. Michael Proctor was fired for his texts about Karen Read and for what he did on an overtime shift, where he was making time and a half.
You also investigated Michael Proctor for this allegation of drinking on duty.
This was at the post-commission hearing. That's what this is, when he was trying to get his job back. But remember, he quickly pulled his application or his motion to get his job back the second that his total phone extraction was revealed to the world, or at least the defense attorneys and other law enforcement agencies on October 24th of 2025, which was a Friday. We covered it live. And then that next day on the Saturday is when he withdrew his application to try and get his job back. And they still had 3 full days of hearings left. And Mr. Moynihan, Daniel Moynihan, I think his name is, Proctor's union attorney, quickly withdrew support for him, and as did the union, saying they wanted to close this very embarrassing chapter in MSP history, and they were no longer supporting Michael Proctor. But this was one of the days of hearings that happened before it was withdrawn.
Correct, I did.
Proctor and Canton Police Detective Kevin Albert drove to the Cape in Proctor's unmarked cruiser. While investigating a cold case, they stopped for cold beers at Treehouse Brewery in Sandwich, and then dinner and more drinks at a...
So where does Brian Higgins live on the Cape? Does anybody know? I remember one time recently it came out that he has a house on the Cape. Does anybody know what part of the Cape it's in? Like what town? Just tell me the town. I don't want to know his address. Oh, it's in Sandwich, says Serenity RPH. Well, that's so interesting because that's where Kevin Albert and Michael Proctor say that they went when they were investigating this cold case. And remember, it was in July of 2022. 6 months after John O'Keefe was murdered. Isn't that a coinkydink? Okay. Ham Sandwich. He lives in Ham Sandwich. Okay, hang on. Here we go. Here it is. Kevin Albert drove to he and Kevin Albert. Oops.
Unmarked cruiser. While investigating a cold case, they stopped for cold beers at Treehouse Brewery in Sandwich, and then dinner and more drinks at a restaurant in Hanover on the way home. Proctor's cruiser was equipped with a hardwired GPS tracker. State police began installing the devices in all of their vehicles in 2019. The initial cost, $225,000.
So I believe Wow, $225,000 to install these GPS trackers into all the cars. And Katie Kane says your tax dollars at work. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said, why would Kevin Albert and Michael Proctor be working together? I mean, Michael Proctor is assigned to the Norfolk County DA's office, which means that he works only cases in Norfolk County. And Kevin Albert is a detective at the Canton PD. And so I guess it was a Canton cold case that they were allegedly investigating together. I have questions. You have questions. We're going to go back to Proctor's initial IA investigation report to look at some more details and try and connect some more dots and put some more context clues together, because the dominoes are starting to fall, and falling they are, in my opinion.
That this is an important step forward for the department, an important resource for the department.
Then Colonel Christopher Mason touted it as an accountability tool following the overtime fraud scandal that rocked the agency in 2018.
So we'll now have the ability to track historical time and attendance.
25 Investigates filed a public records request for Proctor's GPS data on the day he went to the Cape with Kevin Albert.
Look at Ted Daniel taking a page out of Corey Hopkins' book and filing a Freedom of Information Act request. You too can do it. Just go on the Norfolk County website and there's a form. You don't even need to use the form. You can just send an email to the public records administrator. It tells you exactly where to send it. And you can ask for public records for just about anything in that county. Just make sure your request is narrowly tailored and they are required to respond to you within a certain period of time. And you too can get records like this. And so Ted Daniel made a Freedom of Information Act request for the GPS data from Michael Proctor's car that he was driving that day. So let me just take that back. He did a public records request just like anybody else can do. And here's what he asked for.
Time and attendance.
25 Investigates filed a public records request for Proctor's GPS data on the day he went to the Cape with Kevin Albert. If you go by the report, Proctor drove a total of...
Hold on, let's freeze on it. Scott McGinnis says, what's funny about GPS being installed in Massachusetts State Police vehicles, it was fallout from the fake overtime scandal. Guess who reported on all of that? Aiden Carney himself, a.k.a. Turtle Boy. Thank you, Scott McGinnis. And so here it is. Here's the public records request. Let me see if I can get a better screenshot of it.
With Kevin Albert. If you go...
And there it is. If you go in there, it's July 19th of 2022. The driving duration is only 8 seconds. 8 seconds of GPS data. Hang on. What's interesting, too, is all the other days before that, on the 18th, 5 seconds, 4 seconds. Not a whole lot of GPS going on here for Michael Proctor. But I don't know if that was just like he turned on his car and turned it off. Maybe they're moving cars around the parking lot because, it was really sunny and beautiful in July of 2022 and they needed to move the cars around like they do. I don't know. Listen to what Ted Daniel says.
By the report, Proctor drove a total of 8 seconds that day and never left his hometown of Canton. The rest of his travels were never recorded. With a flip of a switch, he was able to turn his tracker off.
And fair to say you found no violation of misconduct in that respect.
Correct.
Michael, would you like to make any comment?
Proctor was never disciplined for turning off his vehicle locator because he was authorized to.
You can't shut your radio off, so why would you shut that off?
Dennis Galvin is a retired state police major and president of the Massachusetts Association for Professional.
Wait, Dennis Galvin. Why is that name familiar? Who's Denise Galvin? What's Jennifer McCabe's sister Denise's name, the scrivener? Anybody know what her name is? I don't know. I could be conflating it with something else. Her name's Denise something. Is it Denise Galvin? Am I wrong about that? It is Denise Galvin? Well, that's interesting. This guy's name is Dennis Galvin. I don't know if it's any relation. Thank you. I don't know if it's any relation. Listen, a lot of these people have generations of law enforcement in their family. I don't know if it is, but the name, when they said Dennis Galvin, I'm like, wait a second, was there also a Denise Galvin? Listen, do not please spread any misinformation that I'm saying they're related. I am not saying they're related. I'm just saying that it reminded me of somebody named Denise Galvin, and I think that is John McCabe's sister, but I don't know if this man has anything to do with her. I just think that, sometimes there's a lot of coincidences that are happening.
Is a retired.
You can't shut your radio off, so why would you shut that off?
Dennis Galvin is a retired state police major and president.
But, the closed captions say Gallon, it's Galin, but we know the closed captions are always wrong. It sounded to me like he said Galvin. I don't want to hear it again, so I'm not sure.
Vehicle locator because he was authorized to.
You can't shut your radio off, so why would you shut that off?
Dennis Galvin is a retired state police major
Gallon.
and president of the Massachusetts Association for Professional Law Enforcement. There are roughly 3,000 state police vehicles with GPS locators on the road. 25 investigates found 418 of them have a kill switch. An agency spokesperson says tracking can only be disabled with a supervisor's permission, and only in sensitive investigations where location data can put people at risk. We asked Galvin about that.
You could wind up disclosing information about critical witnesses or even informants and things like that.
All right, there it is. It's on the Chiron now. His name is Dennis Galvin, Galvin. He's a retired MSP major, Massachusetts Association for Professional Law Enforcement.
And those are things that it would be in the department's interest to make sure that weren't available.
But the switch can be abused. A state police internal affairs report from 2021 says then Trooper Dwayne Correa had his gun stolen out of his unmarked cruiser following.
You know what's so funny about that? Kevin Albert's gun went missing too. This is the same day, or maybe the next morning, that Kevin Albert said to Michael Proctor via text message, "Dude, where's my gun? We were so hammered last night. I don't know where my gun is or my badge. Did you find it in your car, like in your cup holder or in your glove?" It's not exactly what he said, but that's the gist of it. And Proctor said, "Well, I found your badge in my cup holder," or something such as like that, "but I don't know where your gun is, dude." And then Kevin Albert was like, "Okay, man, could you just drop it off in my mailbox?" And so that's kind of interesting that this guy, Correa, turned off his GPS in his unmarked car and had his gun stolen out of the car. And then the same thing happened that day when apparently Proctor, maybe they're saying, might have turned off the GPS. And then Kevin Albert maybe might have lost his gun. It's kind of interesting, right? Trooper Dwayne Correa, September 1st of 2020, right? So this would have been almost 2 years before Proctor allegedly maybe turns off the GPS because, they were, investigating this really dangerous cold case in Sandwich, which is coincidentally exactly the same place where Brian Higgins has a house. I don't know. That's like coincidence, right? So don't you think they would have been a little more diligent about giving permission to shut off the GPS after this guy, Trooper Dwayne Correa, lost his gun 2 years prior? I don't know. Just, spitballing with you.
Trooper Dwayne Correa had his gun stolen out of his unmarked cruiser following a night of drinking in Providence. The report says Correa disabled his tracker to conceal his whereabouts from his supervisors.
I think there's a management obligation here to make sure that there's compliance.
State police denied our request for a list of all the vehicles where tracking can be shut off, calling it detrimental to the security and safety of uniformed members.
Yeah, sometimes they deny your public records requests. And then if you're Corey Hopkins, you file a lawsuit. We're going to talk about that as well. Corey Hopkins is a South Carolina or North Carolina attorney. It escapes me right now, but I like to get details right. Who has filed a lawsuit in Norfolk County to have the sidebars in Karen Reed's trials unsealed. We're going to find out what roadblocks she's running into. And so apparently they didn't want to give Ted Daniel the information on which cruisers have the ability or have kill switches in them because it's detrimental to the security and safety of uniformed members. I mean, okay, maybe.
A state police spokesperson tells me newly appointed Colonel Jeffrey Noble recently increased oversight on the small number of requests to temporarily disable the system to protect the personal safety of troopers, victims, and witnesses. And state police say that GPS data is cross-referenced when reviewing payroll. For 25 Investigates, I'm Ted Daniel.
Well, you know what? Praise be Ted Daniel for getting out and doing it done like an old school reporter, right? Making FOIA requests, doing the real work, grinding away. But let's take a look, shall we? Come with me, if you will, all the way back to when Michael Proctor was investigated by Internal Affairs. And Internal Affairs rendered a report of their investigation on July 29th of 2024. And we reviewed this when it first came out. And the copy that I have has a watermark on it that says LTL Media. So shout out. I guess Brian is the one who gave this to me. I may have even done it with him on one of our shows. I don't remember because it was a long time ago. I barely remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So let's take a look at Michael Proctor's Internal Affairs investigation report and what Michael Proctor told to the investigators when he was being investigated by Internal Affairs. We're not going to read the whole thing because it's 15 pages, but we already have done this once. So take a look. This is a January 29th of 2024 report from the Division of Standards and Training, Office of Professional Integrity and Accountability for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of State Police. And this is to Captain Bruce O'Rourke, the Commanding Office of Professional Integrity and Accountability, from Detective Lieutenant Kevin Dwyer, the Office of Professional Integrity and Accountability. And the subject is Trooper Michael D. Proctor. And there's the Internal Affairs case number right there for your viewing pleasure. And it reads as follows. The beginning. On March 4th of 2024, I was assigned to investigate this matter. This investigation was initiated after a personnel investigation was requested by Lieutenant Colonel Brian P. Connors, the Division of Investigative Services Commander, concerning information received from the Norfolk County DA's office regarding Trooper Michael D. Proctor's participation in an ongoing criminal investigation. A copy of Lieutenant Colonel Connors' request for an investigation dated March 4th, 2024 has been submitted with this report as Exhibit 1. Okay, let's put this timeline in perspective. February of 2024 is when Josh Levy, who then was the acting U.S. attorney for the state of Massachusetts, turned over all of the TUI information, all the federal investigative materials that they thought were relevant to Adam Lally and his team and Karen Reed's defense team. February of 2024 was over 3,000 pages of material. Included therein was not only the ARCA report, but there were also the text messages with Proctor, the group text messages with Matt McCabe and Jen McCabe and the Alberts. There were, I believe, also the autopsy report from Irene Scordiabello. A lot of material that was sent to or given to both sides because Josh Levy said in a conference call to both of them, in good conscience, I cannot allow this case to go to trial. And so that was February 2024. And so apparently, at that same time, the Norfolk County DA's office also gave that information to the Internal Affairs Bureau because it implicated Michael Proctor in doing some things that were maybe a little bit nefarious, right? Or nefarious. February of 2024 is also the time that Michael Proctor disposed of his cell phone. He didn't retain it, and he got a new phone. And he disposed of his phone, got a new phone. And ever since February of 2024, he thought that he had set his phone to delete everything, auto-delete everything every 30 days. But then on March 4th, 2024, this is all in the timeline, this was assigned to Internal Affairs to investigate Proctor. Paragraph 2 says the ongoing criminal investigation referenced in the request for investigation is Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Ms. Reed was charged in relation to the death of John O'Keefe, who was a Boston police officer. State Police Detective Unit for Norfolk County conducted this criminal investigation. The investigation was initiated on January 29th, 2022, after Mr. O'Keefe's body was found on the front lawn of a residence in Canton. Trooper Proctor, who was assigned to SPDU Norfolk at the time, was the primary investigator. Interesting how Internal Affairs thought that he was the primary investigator too. And I can remember how hard Karen's attorneys tried to get parts of this Internal Affairs report into evidence, and I believe they were thwarted at every turn in both trials by Judge Cannoni. As part of that investigation, it says here, right, the Norfolk DA's office advised the department that they had been notified by the U.S. Attorney's Office that there was a federal investigation that involved Trooper Proctor. As part of that investigation, the contents of Trooper Proctor's personal cell phone were obtained. It was discovered that Trooper Proctor sent text messages of a derogatory and defamatory nature about Ms. Reed. The Norfolk DA's office did not provide the department with any documentation pertaining to the text messages. The notification was verbal only. So I was wrong. They did not turn over the actual information because now, as I recall, it was under federal protective order, but they just told them about it verbally. The department was advised that any member who was informed of these text messages was required to sign an NDA that limited their ability to speak about the content. As a result of the disclosure by the DA's office, the department subsequently initiated this personnel investigation. Okay. So they started investigating in March of 2024. This report did not come out until after the first trial was over. So this report is dated July 29th of 2024. Do you remember the day the mistrial was declared? That was, I believe, July 1st of 2024. Okay. Now, I'm going to just scroll down a bit. They talk about here, as we get to paragraph 6, Proctor's testimony on June 10th. And it says, this summary only pertains to testimony concerning the text message communications that Trooper Proctor sent. It should be noted that there are a few instances where the court transcript does not accurately capture what was testified to or was heard in the video. The text below are what was heard from the video testimony. This is not a summary of any testimony related to the investigation or facts of the case. And so they go on to talk about texts that Trooper Proctor made with a group of friends with whom he grew up and went to school. The text occurred during the late night hours of January 29th, 2022, and early morning of February 1st of 2022. And the text thread is labeled Proctor and Friends. Trooper Proctor used his personal cell phone. His nickname in the text thread is Chip. Oh, I saw some people commenting earlier about, I guess Jimmy Auntie Deb released a video this morning when he interviewed me. That is just, it is a clip from a much longer video that we did together a very long time ago. So that's not new. That is older content that he clipped and he released it this morning and it was fun. I don't remember how long ago that was, but it was a long time ago, I think. Who knows? Time is all relative, right? Time drifts. I don't even know what time it is right now, but I think tomorrow's a full moon. And so here in part of the text messages, a friend asked him the name of that BPD officer, and Trooper Proctor replied, John O'Keefe. Other messages about whether the homeowner is going to receive some shit. Proctor replied, nope, homeowner's a Boston cop too. Trooper Proctor texted the group, she waffled him, and I looked at his body in the hospital. He was banged up. And so he's giving out details, of this investigation. He's not supposed to be doing that with people that are not involved in the investigation, especially his childhood friends, but he didn't care. He kept doing it. Trooper Proctor texted the friend group, there's another animal we won't be able to prove, in reply to a text about the victim being frozen in the driveway and she didn't see him. Proctor later explained during cross-examination that this text was in response to his own text of intentional or not. And you know the rest of these text messages here. She's a whack job C-word. Yeah, she's a babe with a weird Fall River accent, though. No ass. Nutbag, as Chief would say, the leaky so-and-so, and blah, blah, blah. Text messages between him and his sister where he says, just found a frozen to death on a front lawn in Canton this morning and actually just interviewed Jen McCabe. Said she knows you. Trooper Proctor then texted his sister, "Don't say a word to anyone. At the very least, it's suspicious. And Julie and Chris were at the bar with the victim and girlfriend. Got to interview them." Julie and Chris are related to the homeowner and were also friends with his sister, Courtney. Then on February 1st of 2022, at approximately 5:57 p.m., Trooper Proctor texted his sister, "Get Elizabeth one." This was in response to his sister saying that Julie Albert wanted to get Trooper Proctor a gift. Elizabeth is Trooper Proctor's wife. Trooper Proctor testified about a text message he sent his wife on 6/9/22 at approximately 4:56 p.m., in which, after Ms. Reed was indicted by a grand jury, Trooper Proctor texted, "We're going to lock this whack job up." On 6/9 of 22, Ms. Reed was processed at the SP Milton Barracks. At approximately at 11:19 p.m., Trooper Proctor texted coworkers DeChico and Kikowski, "If you like women who blank themselves," referring to Ms. Reed's medical condition. In response to Trooper Kikowski asking what she said, Trooper Proctor responded, "Statements made tonight at H7 was mental. Thank Christ it was on BWC, or body-worn camera. Said the Alberts beat the shit out of O'Keefe, left him for dead. That's why her taillight was cracked. She's gross." So there it is, folks. If anybody tries to gaslight you into thinking that it was Karen Reed's attorneys or Turtle Boy or anybody else on YouTube that's been reporting about the Karen Reed case, if anybody tries to gaslight you into saying that, Turtle Boy's the one who made this up, Karen Reed said it herself on body-worn camera on June 9th of 2022, the second time she was arrested. Karen Reed said the Alberts beat the shit out of O'Keefe, left him for dead, and that's why her taillight was cracked. She's gross. Cracked. He didn't say shattered. He said cracked. I remember what Karen Reed said. She said something like, "We're all in on the same joke, right? John was pulverized and my taillight was cracked." I'm summarizing. And then on 8/17 of 2022, which would have been after the July date. So let's put this into context. June 9th, 2022, Karen's arrested for the second time. Tells Proctor, John was pulverized. The Alberts beat him up. I have a cracked taillight. In July, that's the day when Proctor and Kevin Albert go to the Cape on this alleged cold case, turn off the GPS, and they go to Sandwich. Kevin Albert loses his gun, drinking on the job, all that. And then on August 17th, 2022, the following month, Trooper Proctor texted a group of his coworkers, including Fanning, Buchanan, DeChico, and Kikowski, in response to a picture that one of the groups sent of Ms. Reed's attorney. I think it was Yannetti. Yeah, because that's the only attorney she had at that time. Proctor responded, "Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone." Those are his words, not mine. "No nudes so far. And I hate that man. I truly hate him." He explained that the client he referred to as Ms. Reed and that the phone was hers. Well, that was in August of 2022. We now know that there were thousands of messages found on Proctor's phone, going all the way back to 2013, all the way up to and including August of 2025. Thousands of sensitive images were found of body parts. I assume naked body, intimate images of body parts that were found on Proctor's phone that were not body parts of the people in the text message thread. We know that the text message thread of him and his buddies from middle school went back, I don't know how long, years and years and years. So were there more nudes actually in this exact thread? I don't know. Will we find out? Maybe. What do you think? I said at the time when we read this, I said, maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a first time thing. no nudes so far. He said it was a joke. And I said, maybe this is just something they do. And boy, did some people think I was an idiot for that. Well, who's going to have the last laugh here? Not Michael Proctor, that's for sure. Trooper Proctor explained that the no nudes text was an inappropriate joke and testified that he did not go through Ms. Reed's photos. Really? You think? Just Iris says, I think there's a whole nudes collection. Thank you for spelling it that way. On his June 12th of 2024 testimony. Hold on. This is so funny because I remember this, and we were talking about this yesterday also. Michael Proctor first started testifying on June 10th of 2024 because he only testified in the first trial. And then the 11th was a day off, go figure, and then he testified again on the 12th. And I said to you, I don't know, maybe that was trial strategy. Maybe Lally decided to schedule the very, the most difficult witnesses who he knew were going to get barbecued on the stand the day before there was going to be a day off or a weekend. Maybe that's why he kept it going and going and going. So the clock would run out on the Friday, and then the witness would have the whole weekend to think about what they were going to say on Monday. And you're not supposed to prep a witness who's under oath. I'm not saying that they did that, but didn't we also find out that Jennifer and Matt McCabe went into the DA's office and met with Tully and asked to see some dash cam footage at some point, and Tully prepped them for trial and showed it to them? Maybe at the same time that Jennifer McCabe was already on the stand or something such as like that. I might be conflating, and if I am, I apologize. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember something like that. Trooper Proctor testified that he went out drinking with Kevin Albert on 7/19/22 after working on a cold case. He later clarified they went to Sandwich for an interview. Who were they interviewing? So 7/19/22, Sandwich. On 7/20 of 2022 at approximately 8:39 a.m., Trooper Proctor texted Kevin Albert, "Found your badge in my cruiser this morning." After defense pointed out that Kevin Albert texted Trooper Proctor that he could not find his badge and gun. I'm not making it up. This is what he testified to. It's right here in the papers. This is the Internal Affairs report regarding Michael Proctor from July of 2024, in case you're just tuning in right now. In response to defense asking if Kevin Albert left his badge in his cruiser after a night of drinking, Trooper Proctor responded, yes. Defense then asked if he was drinking and driving in his cruiser. Trooper Proctor responded, yes. Oh, no, wait a second. Trooper Proctor responded, from what I remember, we were down the Cape working on a cold case together and stopped for dinner, had a few beers, and then dropped him off. Defense shows Trooper Proctor a text from Kevin Albert from 7/20/22 about being hungover and asks if that refreshes his memory about drinking the night before, to which Proctor responded, yes, it does refresh my memory. Defense then asks if he was in his cruiser, to which Trooper Proctor responds, yes, sir. On February 4th of 2022, in response to a text from his sister, Trooper Proctor texted, hopefully she kills herself. Trooper Proctor explained that he was referring to Ms. Reed, but it was just a figure of speech. I don't think Yuri lives in Sandwich. I think Yuri lives in Canton. People are saying that Higgins has a house in Sandwich, I believe, or did, or still may. Well, I don't think it's Yuri. But maybe Yuri has a house there too. I don't know. During Proctor's testimony, he testified that he drank alcohol and then operated his department-issued cruiser. This occurred when he said he went to Sandwich with Canton police officer Kevin Albert to further an investigation on an unresolved case from Canton. He testified that they then stopped for dinner and had a few beers. After being questioned by defense counsel, he acknowledged that he was in his cruiser for these events. Trooper Proctor also acknowledged that this occurred on July 19th of 2022. Detective Lieutenant Goslin confirmed that pay station entries show that Trooper Proctor did work his regularly scheduled shift, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. on July 19th of 2022, and also worked overtime on July 19th of 2022 from 5 p.m. until 10:30 p.m. The note on his overtime entry reflects that he was working on an unresolved case from Canton. This same information is also reflected in the SPDU Norfolk Daily Administrative Journal for July 19th of 2022. Detective Lieutenant Goslin was also able to confirm through the automatic vehicle locator, this is the AVL or GPS, as Ted Daniel was calling it in his reporting, for Trooper Proctor's assigned cruiser at the time, Cruiser 2239, that Trooper Proctor left his home at 8:28 a.m. and ultimately returned home at 10:54 p.m. These times coincide with the work hours Trooper Proctor submitted as being worked. Multiple attempts were made to contact Kevin Albert for an interview. Those attempts have been unsuccessful. Really? So they investigated this, Internal Affairs investigated this between March and July of 2024, and they couldn't get Kevin Albert to cooperate for an interview? I don't know. I would think that would be mandatory. But no. Copy of Trooper Proctor's pay station entry for July 19th has been submitted with this report as Exhibit 9. Copy of the DAJ, SPDU, Norfolk DAJ for July 19th, 2022 has been submitted with this report as Exhibit 10. Copy of the AVL data for Trooper Proctor's cruiser has been submitted with this report as Exhibit 11. Well, it says that what time he went home, what time he left his house and what time he got home. But then, as we move further through this, we see just specifically about the GPS information. And this is after Proctor showed up with his attorney, Daniel Moynihan, at the time to talk to IA. Trooper Proctor then spoke to, this is paragraph 15. Trooper Proctor then spoke to investigators about events that occurred on July 19th of 2022 while he was working an unresolved case with Canton Police Officer Kevin Albert. Trooper Proctor stated that he picked Kevin Albert up and they both traveled to Sandwich to interview witnesses related to the unresolved case. Trooper Proctor stated that he drove in his department-issued cruiser. His cruiser is equipped with an AVL switch, which he deactivated for the day. Trooper Proctor went on to say that he is authorized to deactivate his AVL when his work assignment involves work pursuant to his investigative duties for the Norfolk County DA's office. Really? Anytime you're investigating anything for the Norfolk DA's office, Michael Marcy allows you to just switch off your AVL or GPS. I thought Ted Daniel just said that they had to ask permission to turn it off. While Trooper Proctor could not remember the time they arrived in Sandwich, he estimated that he picked Kevin Albert up in Canton approximately 5 p.m. and drove directly to Sandwich. He did not remember if there were traffic delays, but estimated that it took them approximately 1.5 to 2 hours. When they arrived in Sandwich, they interviewed a witness and attempted to locate another witness. I would love to see those witness statements. Do you think they exist? Well, just one. They interviewed one witness and attempted to locate another witness, but I guess they just couldn't. Trooper Proctor said that he and Kevin Albert then stopped at a restaurant in Sandwich and had dinner. Trooper Proctor stated that he did have approximately 1 to 2 beers with dinner. Doesn't everybody say that? Just 1 or 2 beers. He stated that both he and Kevin Albert secured their firearms inside locked containers in his cruiser. After they finished dinner, Trooper Proctor stated that he then drove Kevin Albert home to Canton, dropping him off at approximately 10:45 p.m. Trooper Proctor could not recall the time he left the restaurant. He also could not recall how long it took them to return to Canton that night, but estimated based on past experiences that the drive from Sandwich to Canton takes approximately 1.5 hours. Trooper Proctor stated that he was not intoxicated and does not believe Kevin Albert was intoxicated. Trooper Proctor acknowledged that he did find Kevin Albert's badge in his cruiser the next day, but had no knowledge of what happened to Kevin Albert's firearm. "16. Here's where it gets interesting. For some reason, this PDF will not allow me to highlight it, so I must use my red pen. And I love my red pen, as you know. And it looks like I never underlined anything in paragraph 16 the first time we went through this, and now I see how relevant this is becoming. Trooper Proctor was asked if any information that did not come out at the trial exists or existed on his personal cell phone that is relevant to this investigation or could be viewed as damaging to him or the department. Trooper Proctor stated he does not believe there is any information that can be viewed as derogatory, defamatory, or offensive. Trooper Proctor was also asked if any information exists or existed from any other source, including his work cell phone, that is relevant to this investigation, meaning this internal affairs investigation, or could be viewed as damaging to him or the department. Trooper Proctor stated he does not believe that there is any information from any source that could be viewed as damaging to him or to the department, and does not believe there is any information from any source that can be viewed as derogatory, defamatory, or offensive. In relation to his work phone, cell phone, Trooper Proctor acknowledged that this phone has an associated iCloud account, but he has no memory of ever accessing it and does not know what the password is for the iCloud. That's his work phone. He did say that the current work cell phone that he has is his second work cell phone and that he was issued it approximately 1 to 2 years ago. Trooper Proctor went on to express to investigators how the trial and associated publicity has affected his home and family life. He described repeated harassing communications where he has received death threats and people have wished harm would come to him and his family members, to include his children, among other things. Well, among other things, we might find out that what is found, or what has been found in the total phone extraction of Proctor's phone, which we understand is his personal phone that he used for work business, may have certain things that are absolutely derogatory, defamatory, and or offensive with regard to other defendants, not just Karen Reed, and or led to the recent suspension. As of yesterday, was confirmed that Sergeant Sean Good of Canton PD has been suspended with pay, which, you know, is an administrative hoop that needs to be jumped through before further action is taken against him. And that he was suspended with pay as a result of what was turned over to Canton PD by the Norfolk County DA's office involving Proctor's phone extraction. And we also may find out, or they might find out, or the world might find out, Proctor also lied to Internal Affairs when he made those statements that we just read from paragraph 16. Let's see what the conclusion was, because I really don't remember what the conclusion was on this Internal Affairs report. Well, they have sustained findings about Michael Proctor providing information about a homicide victim to non-law enforcement personnel. A sustained finding that between January 29th and February 1, 2022, Proctor provided information about potential witnesses in a homicide investigation to non-law enforcement personnel. That was sustained. Also sustained that between January 29 and June 9, Trooper Proctor of 2022 provided information about potential investigative steps and police actions related to a homicide investigation to non-law enforcement personnel. That was sustained. Employee misconduct. That he sent derogatory, defamatory, and or disparaging text messages to non-law enforcement personnel about a suspect in a homicide investigation. That was sustained. That he engaged in behavior to accept a reward, gift, or gratuity on account of his official services. That was insufficient evidence. That was not sustained about the gift. But it was sustained that he sent derogatory, defamatory, and disparaging messages about a suspect in a homicide investigation between June 9th and August 17th of 2022 to other law enforcement personnel. That was sustained. Insufficient evidence that he looked for nudes. That was not sustained. Some other things that were sustained. He was exonerated of July 19th, received overtime pay while not engaging in official duties. He was exonerated of that. And other sustained findings. Now, is this what led to his termination? This was, remember, this was in July 29th of 2024. Still looking for nudes. No exhibits are attached. This was July 29th of 2024. He admitted that he turned off the GPS, but he also said that he was allowed to do it anytime he was working on or investigating on anything for the Norfolk DA's office. So, who knows what could be found in this total phone extraction? Bob Cromwell says also, you don't turn off the GPS in Canton to go work a case. You go with the case and then turn the GPS off to go drink. The entire trip was nothing about a case. Meeting Higgins actually sounds legit. Katie Kane says, if any of them were smarter, they'd be Alec Murdoch. I'm watching the Hulu series. Are you? It's very well done. Columbo Wannabe is here and gifted a membership. Thank you so much. Deborah Kelsey says, hit the like and subscribe. Thank you. Gigi, thanks for your 5. Thank you. Thank you so very much about my daughter getting into the college of her choice. I appreciate you. And Deborah gifting 5 memberships. You're amazing. Jana, thanks for becoming a member. Deanne says, prayers for Kelsey. Thanks for always bringing us the stuff and things. A lot of things and stuff. And I just had to go back to that internal affairs report to see what he said about the GPS and where he was that day. And so much more is going to come. Much more stuff and things to come. Thanks for your super chat. LF says, Melanie, you're Toni Collette's much more beautiful younger sister. You're the best. Love you, Lamar. I love Toni Collette too. Thank you. I'll appreciate it, and I'll allow it. And thank you so much for your 10. Gen X Chick says, I love it when I catch you live. I love it too. And you've been here for 14 months. So thank you for being here for so long. And Jomar says, clown cops gone wild. It is, right? Insane. 20th Century Fox says, the Secretary of the Commonwealth is William Galvin since 1995. Rabbit hole, anyone? I love you, Mel. Oh, I love you too. Thanks, 20th Century Fox. Get on into that rabbit hole because I don't have time for any more rabbit holes. Thanks, Emily, for becoming a member. And Gigi says, I bet it will cost Massachusetts more to put the kill switch in than the GPS. Or I bet it costs to them more to put in the kill switch than the GPS. Yeah. Well, apparently they're spending $70,000 a month just monitoring the stuff and just monitoring costs. MJ became a member. Miss Misty became a member. And Denise in Pennsylvania became a member. Welcome to all of you. Nate Taylor says, Proctor's laying on his front lawn crying. I don't know, Nate. Thanks for your super chat. Rosie's overruled. Love all the cupcakes. Mods learning from Melanie. Thanks for being here for 2 months. Appreciate you all so very much. Karen became a member. Welcome. Tennessee Jet is here. Brian Albert wanted to know why Higgy didn't get a subpoena. A subpoena to testify in front of, because this was right after Karen Reed was indicted by the grand jury. Wanted to know why he didn't get a subpoena to testify in front of the grand jury to indict Karen. I remember some talk about that Brian Higgins was blowing off Brian Albert and wouldn't call him back or something. And then Kevin Albert reached out to Brian Higgins to say, why are you, they all got subpoenas. Did you get a subpoena? Why are you ghosting everyone or something like that? But I don't remember when or what grand jury that was about. If it was about the federal grand jury or if it was about the state grand jury to indict Karen, because that was in 2022, June-ish, right? And so I don't know. That's what people are surmising. Tennessee Jed. Oh, and R.I.P. Donna Jean Gottschall of the Grateful Dead died yesterday. Very sad. Very sad. Friend of the dog says, thank you, Melanie. We're all here for the unraveling. Thank you very much for your $50 super chat. You're super generous. and a sweetheart, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Brina says, I wonder if the cold case was John's and they went to interview Higgins. No, I don't think so. I don't think so, because at that point, listen, he had it pinned on the girl within 16 hours, right? Or 12 or 10 or however many hours. He knew he was going to pin it on the girl. So that was not a cold case. There has been some information out there on social media about exactly who the cold case might be. I am just not privy to that. But you guys have pointed me in the direction of some rumblings, and I'm just not sure exactly what cold case it was, if it's been confirmed that it was in fact that cold case. And I want to say it was a guy by the name of Mosher, Mosher. And the only reason I know that is because I had a client also named Mosher, but I think this one was named, my client had a different name. This one, maybe Michael Mosher. Don't hold me to it. But apparently, maybe around this time, Higgins was ghosting everyone. I'm not sure if it was exactly around this time in June of 2022. If anybody's got receipts on that, let me know, because I like to stick to receipts and facts. Thank you for your super chat. Shannon Brown says, yes. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you for your 10, Shannon Brown. And Bob says, GPS Gate. I just researched Tree Brewing Company, and they only sell beer and pizza to go. Really? Cheapest 4-pack of beer is $16. They couldn't eat inside. Did they get beer to drink while driving? Endless lies. Well, thank you, Bob Cromwell. And thanks for falling in the rabbit hole with us. Welcome to the rabbit hole. That's why sometimes Alice in Wonderland is up in the corner. And in fact, we have an Alice emoji for that. I say, call me Alice, because I fell into the rabbit hole. There you go. In addition to, the solo cup and the leaf blower and the puffy jacket. Remember the puffy jacket? So many memories of the Karen Reed trial. And Maura Valesi says, hey, I think I got my months back. Well, it says 15 months. So if 15 months is accurate, you're an OG. Thank you. And Leave the Drama at the Door says, Proctor could never be a cupcake. I think he probably hates me with every fiber in his being. Thank you for your super chat. Pierre says, we've been through a lot of duckery in these years. Yeah, 23 months together, Pierre. A lot of duckery. And D. Johns, thanks for your super sticker. What does that say? It looks like the Morton Salt person. It says, don't be a salty biatch. I love it. Love it. Thanks for your super sticker. El Dente has been here for 15 months at least and says, Microdots has Healy's office, huge drug bust. Awesome. Everyone go watch that when we're done here. Yeah, a couple pounds of cocaine, I think, were delivered to their office or something the other day. I don't know. I can't be on top of everything, you guys. I mean, I can't know every detail of every single thing that's going on in your state, but I remember it did pop up in my feed. Thank you, Mozzie, for your super sticker, for tuning in all the way from down under. And Music to My Soul says, I thought that Proctor only investigated things for Norfolk County DA's office while he was embedded in Morrissey's unit. Am I missing something? Well, I don't know what you mean. So Canton PD is part of Norfolk County. And so Proctor has been working for the Norfolk DA's office. My understanding is since he started with MSP in 2012, that he's been assigned to that unit. And so that would mean he's been there the entire time. And Morrissey has been, I think, the district attorney in Norfolk County since 2010. So I'm not sure if I am missing something. Thank you for your super chat. And Leave the Drama at the Door says it was a cold case of beer. Oh, Nicole said the Mosher case was based out of Barnstable. The cold case was not out of Norfolk County. So Canton PD would not have been investigating that. Is that what you're saying? Yep. And CJ says, I'm sure Proctor still wouldn't change a thing about the investigation. You guys will absolutely fall into this rabbit hole. I know you will. And I welcome you. I welcome you to the pull of the rabbit hole, because the pull is strong. The rabbit hole is deep. Moving on. Next up on my list of things to talk to you about tonight is Robert Devine's testimony. Okay. He's testifying Is he testifying in front of the post commission? Everyone has sent me all of these videos. I just have not had an opportunity to even like look at them yet or go through them yet. I know Trial Channel has been posting them. So Robert Devine was the head of the Police Explorers program during the time that Sandra Birchmore was at the Police Explorers program. And this happened when Sandra Birchmore joined the Police Explorers program when she was, it's the post commission here. Okay, thank you. Sandra Birchmore joined the Police Explorers because she wanted to be a police officer. And this was a program for children run by pedos, maybe, or pedophile, maybe, in my opinion. She joined this Police Explorers program in Stoughton when she was about, 12 years old, 10, 11, 12 years old. And they began grooming her, maybe, allegedly. Robert Devine was the head of the Police Explorers program. He was also, I believe, with Stoughton PD, right? Matthew Farwell, who is now sitting in federal lockup awaiting trial for not only the murder of Sandra Birchmore, but also the murder of her unborn son, was also a part of the Police Explorers program. He also was grooming Sandra Birchmore since the age of 12 and took her virginity when she was 15. How do we know? Because it was in their text messages. And he remembered it fondly. Justice for Sandra Birchmore. Thank you. So during this time period, or maybe only after Sandra Birchmore reached the age of 18, because it's all very unclear, Sandra Birchmore is being passed around by not only Matthew Farwell, but also Robert Devine and Matthew Farwell's twin brother, because, you just can't make it up. And there was another man by the name of Joshua Heel who was actually with the animal control or something. There's an entire playlist on Sandra Birchmore. So I suggest that you watch that as well. And so after, was Robert Devine fired from Stoughton PD because he became a lawyer? Here's what he became a lawyer. And I don't know why he's going before the post commission right now, because I think maybe he wants to be a police officer in the future, or he just doesn't want any blemishes on his record. But at some point he became a lawyer. And he's victim blaming. That's exactly what he's doing here. It's disgusting. I haven't seen the video of his entire testimony released yet, and so I haven't been able to go through it. But what did pop up on my feed, because it's in my algorithm on YouTube, is Ashley Banfield did a piece last night on News Nation. I need to crop it a little bit because sometimes they like to copyright strike, because, News Nation used to be very liberal about letting us restream and comment on their videos, but they have since tightened it up. So what I need to do is I'm going to need to crop it a little bit and, do all the things that are going to allow me to, hang on a second, maybe go under the radar here. So hang on a second. This is revolting. I'm just going to blanket trigger warn you, because if you haven't heard this already, you're not going to want to hear it. You're not going to want to hear it if you're sensitive to what happened with Sandra Birchmore. And this guy is a POS at the highest level. Okay? At the highest level. Sandra Birchmore's case was quickly ruled a suicide by Canton PD. And Lieutenant John Fanning, who also used to be with Stoughton PD, quickly cleared Matthew Farwell of anything. He interviewed him in the car, I think. Fanning had also been former Stoughton PD, right? Trial Channel has Devine's entire testimony. I don't have time to do the entire thing tonight. I just want to play a little clip of it from News Nation. So I know they've posted like 5 videos of Devine's test of the hearings, but I don't know specifically which one is Devine's testimony. And all I have time for right now is this small piece. So when I have a chance to look at it, I will. It is unknown. So Sandra Birchmore had told Matthew Farwell that he was the child of her unborn baby. At the time of her murder, she was 23 years old and pregnant. Her fetus was 8 to 10 weeks old. She had told Matthew Farwell that he was the father. He thought he was the father. It recently came out that, in fact, he was not the father. We do not know who the father was, and I do not want to speculate who the father was, and I do not want any of you in the chat to speculate about who the father was, because Barry Morphew in Colorado. If you know, you know. But I will say, in general terms, if the father of Sandra Birchmore's baby is someone else who was involved in the investigation of the death of Sandra Birchmore, wouldn't that give them a motive to rule this a suicide? I don't know. But But here is some testimony from Robert Devine, who has been testifying in front of the Post Commission. And he was asked some questions about Sandra Birchmore. And this is going to curl your hair. So, blanket trigger warning. Here we go.
So you interacted with her while you were on patrol approximately 20 times, if not a little more?
Maybe.
How long did those interactions last?
No more than a few minutes.
Hold on. I probably need to boost this. Do I need to boost this? I'm going to boost it. I'm going to sua sponte boost this. Make sure that the captions are, you're able to read them. And here we go.
Only 20 times, if not a little more?
Maybe.
So you interacted with her while you were on patrol approximately 20 times, if not a little more?
Maybe.
How long did those interactions last?
No more than a few minutes.
And how long would those interactions last before she asked you to rail her?
She came up with that one.
How long did the interactions last before she asked you to rail her?
You to rail her.
She came up with that one probably 2 or 3 weeks in.
So just out of the blue, she would just say, when are you going to give in and rail me?
That's what she does. It's not what she did.
That's what she does. And then he remembers that she's dead and says, that's what she did. Can you imagine the smarminess of this man who was head of the Police Explorers program, okay, which was a program for children? Rail her means, you know, have relations with. I'm going to just let you hear that again. 20 interactions with her he had, you know, of the sexual type, at least 20 times. Okay, listen.
How long did those interactions last?
No more than a few minutes.
And how long would those interactions last before she asked you to rail her?
She came up with that one probably 2 or 3 weeks in.
So just out of the blue, she would just say, when are you going to give in and rail me?
That's what she does. It's not what she did.
To you?
No, it's what she did to plenty of people.
So you witnessed when?
No, that's what she did to plenty of people. Plenty of people. Can you say victim blaming? Yes, Devine did have relations with Sandra Birchmore too, as did Matthew Farwell's brother, twin brother. Can't remember his name right now. And a man named Joshua Heel. They were all involved in the civil suit that we covered. It's in the Sandra Birchmore playlist. Like that might have been the first thing that we covered on Sandra Birchmore was the civil suit. It's disturbing.
She did this to other people?
No, other people talked about it.
Who are these other people that talked about it?
Just people around the station, you know, would say things that she would say, inappropriate things to people that she would everything else. I mean, no one told me she directly propositioned them, but that she would say things that were out of bounds.
But you acknowledge that she had told you that she was having a sexual relationship with Matthew Farwell?
No, I didn't acknowledge that. What she said to me was, when she was propositioning, Matt and Billy like it. She said that one time.
Billy, that's the twin of Matthew. Billy Farwell, William Farwell, Matthew Farwell. They're twins. Matthew Farwell is sitting in federal lockup awaiting his trial, for which they can seek the death penalty in federal court, by the way. I'm going to point out to you that they were grooming her since she was maybe 12. This is horrific.
Like what? I assume she meant like sleeping with her. That's what she said to me.
So she did have intimate conversations with you?
That was the one thing she ever said about them.
Did she say that stuff about anyone else?
No.
So it was just Matthew and Billy Farwell?
Well, she said Matt and Billy. I assumed it was Matthew and Billy Farwell. But I also didn't believe her when she said it.
Why not?
Because she lied about everything.
What are some of the things that she lied about?
She lied about everything. She lied about everything. What is some of the things she lied about? Okay, let's listen.
She lied about being pregnant half a dozen times. She had restraining orders taken out on her. I know one restraining order in particular. Her boyfriend said,
Well, he thought that was funny, whatever it was, and News Nation bleeped it out, so I'm not sure what he said, but he thought it was funny. Hold on.
he lied about being pregnant half a dozen times. She had restraining orders taken out on her. I know one restraining order in particular. Her
I know one restraining order in particular. Her boyfriend said, bleep.
boyfriend said, she pretty much lied about everything there was to lie.
So the murder victim is a liar, and the girl who was murdered, who was also raped at 15 and groomed from the time she was 13 in your program, is the liar, is the problem. She's the one asking us all for sex. Though I don't know who. I don't know who. Just people talking, you know. I want to bring in someone who's been following this story very closely. Bob Ward is a reporter for Boston 25 News, good friend of the program. My blood boils.
I love when Ashley Banfield gets outraged.
Bob, it boils when I hear stuff like this about a kid that obviously has had a really rough go from the time of 13, wanted to be a cop, and instead was passed around, it seems. There are other people involved in this story as well. But can I just ask you why former Deputy Police Chief Robert Devine would sit for this interview? Was it mandatory, this internal affairs investigation, now that he's retired?
Well, it's mandatory in that he is trying to fight decertification. He is decertified. I think he let his certification lapse, and the state is moving to decertify him. So
okay, that explains it. The state is moving to decertify him, and that's why he's being called in front of the Post Commission. And he did become a lawyer at some point between them. Yes, Scott McGinnis is one creepy and gross person who has the gall to fight and keep his police certification for what? Just for looks? Yeah, because he doesn't want to have any shame bestowed upon him. And yet, now that this is out there on mainstream, if you want to call News Nation mainstream, because they're picking it up now, I would say the shame that is going to come from this testimony of his becoming public is far greater than any decertification with him shutting his mouth, what might have been. Tell me if you think I'm wrong.
he cannot hold any position in law enforcement in Massachusetts and by extension in other states as well. He is a lawyer, and I think, from what I understand, he is trying to protect his rights, and maybe he wants to advance his career and do some work maybe for the Executive Office of Public Safety, which oversees the state police. If he does not get his certification back, then he won't be able to do any of that. So that's why he is there. That's why he is fighting this.
Follow the money. It's always about the money. Follow the money.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense now that you say he's a lawyer and he wants to do some lawyery type work maybe with the police. That makes sense. So isn't he taking a huge chance by saying, I never had sex with well, she was a woman at the point where it happened. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm not this Mel Gibson character, Marty Riggs, because doesn't the board say, we actually got you on that. We got overwhelming evidence on that.
Exactly. And a lot of this, it hasn't been made public yet, and, the exact evidence that they have. But, the fact that he's gone out there and said, I did not have sex with this young woman. I did not reach out to her on Facebook, on Messenger. In the face of the investigators saying, we have overwhelming evidence that you did these things, that you called her on the day that she died, these can very easily be provable. And from what we understand, there's some computer forensic evidence that's been, analysis that has been done. And, we're hearing that they've been able to put this Marty Riggs alias on Devine. So, it is very difficult to understand how, when you're in the face of facts that can be easily proven wrong, how you could go out there and just present it this way. His lawyer is saying that, he denies everything, that this has all been one big lie, and that he is a victim. He's a victim of people who are out to get him.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation.
Ouch. Ouch. Here's the Globe article on this. This was actually from Halloween, so this is a couple days old already, but let's take a look. And the headline was, oops. Stoughton Police Deputy State's defense claims Sandra Birchmore lied about everything. It says, ex-Stoughton deputy in Sandra Birchmore case claims she lied. My name has been dragged through the mud for the last 3 years for something I didn't do, Devine testified on July 16th. This is about my name. So these go back to July, these hearings. Kenneth Fishman, the retired Superior Court judge who presided over the hearing, issued findings and recommendations in Devine's case on October 10th, according to a Post spokesperson. The agency is keeping Fishman's ruling secret for now on the grounds that commissioners have yet to vote on his recommendations. Devine has until next month to challenge Fishman's findings. Post's Division of Police Standards, which is prosecuting the case, wants to prohibit Devine from regaining his certification to work in law enforcement. His certification lapsed after he retired from the Stoughton Force in 2022. Devine testified that he doesn't want to resume his law enforcement career, but is fighting with efforts to discipline him to clear his name. He says he now works as an attorney, mainly providing estate planning services. Devine and his lawyer, Robert Stowe, didn't respond Thursday to requests for comment. Attorney Steve Marullo has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Devine and the Farwell brothers on behalf of Birchmore's estate. I find it incredible that the alleged perpetrator is blaming the victim for what happened to her when this young lady never had a chance in life and she looked up to these figures of authority, he said on Friday. A pregnant Birchmore, 23, was found dead in her Canton apartment on February 4th of 2021. This was approximately 1 year prior to the murder of John O'Keefe. Birchmore grew up in Stoughton, where she joined a police department youth program directed by Devine when she was 12 years old. Through that program, the Police Explorers, Birchmore met Matthew Farwell, the former Stoughton police detective and patrol officers union president, accused by federal prosecutors of killing her. Federal prosecutors allege that Farwell, a married father, groomed and sexually exploited Birchmore when she was a minor and then continued to have relations with her during her adult years, sometimes when she was on the clock for Stoughton police, sometimes when he was on the clock for Stoughton police. There he is. He's also now charged with the murder of her unborn child. In a superseding indictment released Tuesday, a federal grand jury lodged an additional charge against Farwell, accusing him of causing the death of Birchmore's unborn baby boy. On Friday, Farwell notified the court that he was pleading not guilty to the indictment and waived his court appearance for an arraignment. DNA testing has excluded Farwell as the father, and it's not clear whether investigators have established paternity. In his hearings, Devine testified that in the fall of 2020, when Birchmore was 23, she drove up to his police cruiser in a church parking lot in Stoughton and inquired why he wouldn't just give in and have relations with her. He and Birchmore alluded to having, he said that Birchmore alluded to having relations with Farwell and his twin brother, William, another former Stoughton police officer. What she said to me was she was propositioning me. Matt and Billy like it, Devine said. And we just heard him say that. And because this is Billy, the twin of Matthew. Birds of a feather and all. He added that he didn't believe Birchmore's accounts of having relations with the Farwell brothers because she had lied repeatedly about being pregnant, and a judge issued a restraining order against her at the request of an ex-boyfriend. Post Enforcement Division alleges Devine had an encounter with Birchmore while he was on duty in December of 2020 and falsely claimed that he didn't exchange electronic messages with her. A Stoughton police internal investigation released in 2022 found that Devine used the alias Marty Riggs from the Lethal Weapon franchise to communicate with Birchmore on Facebook. Devine denies using the alias and asserts he didn't have contact of the S kind with Birchmore. He said he never had the Facebook Messenger app that she used to communicate with the person identified as Marty Riggs. He testified he and his family have been targeted by computer hackers for years. Devine accused Stoughton police internal investigators of being biased against him and accused the department's leaders of unfairly scrutinizing him. His testimony covered the 10 years or so that he knew Birchmore. In 2019, he said Birchmore took a self-defense course taught by his wife, a Quincy police officer, in 2019, and asked if she would mentor her. They exchanged cell phone numbers, but Devine testified he counseled his wife against mentoring Birchmore. I said, don't do that, Devine testified. Every time a police officer gives her contact information, it never stops. She ends up having to be blocked. He testified that his wife saved Birchmore's number on her phone under the name Stalker. Brian Holmes, the former Stoughton police deputy chief who led the internal affairs investigation into Devine and the Farwell brothers, also testified. Devine and Holmes were once friends, but their relationship deteriorated, according to testimony. Devine's lawyer asked Holmes, now Kingston's police chief, about a photograph of male genitalia found on an electronic device belonging to Birchmore. You're drawing the conclusion that it is a picture of Mr. Devine's pee-pee, Stowe said. I'm not, said Holmes. So whose pee is that? Asked Stowe. I don't know, said Holmes. Now, it is a good time to point out that there were several intimate images found on the phone of Michael Proctor, going all the way back to 2013. DPs? I don't know. The hearing delved into an incident during which Holmes retrieved a note written in crayon from his police department mailbox, which read, Revenge is a meat. Revenge is a meal best served cold. Testimony linked the note to a 2016 visit to the Stoughton police station by Devine's 8-year-old daughter, who was using crayons. The girl's visit occurred soon after Devine had returned to duty following his demotion from deputy chief to patrol officer and a 60-day unpaid suspension. Devine was sanctioned after an internal affairs investigation found he directed a subordinate to look into harassing messages he received as he attempted to end an extramarital affair. Devine testified that he is a Star Trek fan and his daughter had picked up on the revenge line from the movie Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. She was 8. The girl knew about his falling out with Holmes and was trying to protect her daddy, he said, at 8 years old. After the incident, Devine's daughter was prohibited from visiting the station without authorization. A post lawyer, Sean Martinez, asked about the incident. At 8 years old, she was able to connect the Wrath of Khan quote and the appropriateness of putting it in Holmes's mailbox. Martinez asked. My daughter's a pretty smart kid, Devine said. Birchmore's death was initially declared a suicide by Norfolk DA Michael Marcy and the state medical examiner's office. No criminal charges were filed. Then last August, that'd be August of 2025? 2024. Was he just arrested in August of 2025? No, it's October now. The FBI arrested Matthew Farwell. Federal prosecutors allege Matthew Farwell strangled Birchmore to prevent her from revealing that he had initiated a sexual relationship with her when she was a minor and had continued the affair into her adult years. The charge Farwell faces is eligible for the death penalty, and the U.S. Department of Justice has until January 20th to decide whether it will pursue capital punishment. Farwell's trial is scheduled for next October. That would be October of 2026. Just when you thought you couldn't be any more angry or make up any more about what's going on in the place where your constitutional rights go to die. And Martha Riddle Garcia says Diane Ladd passed away yesterday too. Thank you for pointing that out. I did hear that. Thanks for your super chat. Gigi says, I assure you, if someone screwed with my child, jail would be a reprieve from the power of a mama. Thank you, Gigi, for your 5. Kurt Smith says, OMFG, I hate this guy. I think you're in good company here. And Jessica Ramsey says, that breaks my heart. Thank you. It is heartbreaking. Thank you for your super chat. Gigi says, geez, more silver bracelets to be engraved. And then she says, it's not as if they can ask her, right? Yeah, exactly. It's real easy to claim a dead woman is lying, isn't it? R.I.P. Sandra says, Brina, so sick. These boys, not men. And then Gigi gives them another 5 memberships. Gigi, you're amazing. I love your new profile pic. And you're the greatest, baby. Turtle Boy's non-consensual privacy advocate. Does Devine get a pension now? And if so, would decertification eliminate his ability to collect it going forward? Thank you. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I don't know. I could find out, but I don't want to give you wrong information. So I'm going to just say, I don't know. I don't know how long he's on the force. I don't know if he would be eligible. And I just don't know the answer, but I'm sure there is an armchair detective in the chat who will probably fall into that rabbit hole and find out for you. Thank you for your super chat. You're amazing. Don't forget to smash the like button right about now. Would be a really great time. Thanks, Jen, for buying 3 matcha lattes, who says, thanks for the knowledge and support you give to those that are being persecuted and for always keeping it classy. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you so much. I need lots of matcha latte to get me through. And Dennis, thanks for your Venmo, says Proctor and Gamble. He lost. Well done. Well done. Love a good pun. Proctor and Gamble, and he lost. Thank you, Nona to 3 for buying a matcha latte. Says free Kelsey, and thank you for all your time and care. I appreciate you so much. Sherilyn, thank you so much for your Cash App. Says, I love you with all my heart. Kelly's Union is backing Noonan. I don't know. I saw something go by about somebody said because she was off duty, maybe the union would not represent her. I don't know. I have to look into that a little bit more. Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Brian Goodman with the Venmo says, very discouraging growing up in this state for 60 years. My dad was a well-respected cop for 35 years in North Central Massachusetts, and all the BS going on is quite disgusting. I know. You know, Nurse Kim, I think she's got family in law enforcement too. And so look, all of us back the blue 100%, right? That's why I don't allow trash talking of, you know, in a general sense of law enforcement in my chat. I don't allow it because first of all, LawTube's most hated mod is retired NYPD and he will kick your ass out. And also we back the blue 100%. And nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. And that's why this is so disturbing to see, because so many of us do back the blue. And thank you, Brian Goodman, for reminding us of that. And thank you, Raider Kev says, I'm a retired cop and this disgusts me. Right. But not all cops are bad, right? Just not all priests are bad and not all cops are bad and not all doctors are bad. Not all lawyers are bad. There are good ones in every bunch. And I feel really bad for the good ones in Canton PD because their entire PD is being smeared by what I think is about to fall and has started to fall on Sean Good. Devine and Tiffany Overstreet, says KT. Look into Devine and Tiffany Overstreet. Sandra was not his first rodeo. I think I remember because when we went over the civil suit, and I mean, it had to be in 2024. I think when we first started covering Sandra Birchmore, I think we did cover, but it just escapes my memory right now. Thank you, Kyla, for your Venmo. Says here's for a coffee. Thank you so very much. Truth is love. Thank you for your matcha latte. You're amazing. Free Turtle Boy and Kelsey. And trust is love for a matcha latte. Free Turtle Boy and Kelsey. I think that came through twice. So thank you for 2 matcha lattes. Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns before we move on to the very last topic of the evening, which is going to be Corey Hopkins' lawsuit and what is going on there to try and unseal the sidebars in the Karen Reed both trials. One second. Well, we were trying to find out the time frame of when Brian Higgins ghosted the Alberts. And thank you to Sophia who sent me this cut and paste tweet from Microdots. And this was May of 2024. And the tweet says, we know that Brian Higgins himself ghosted homeowner and close friend Brian Albert shortly after Higgins was contacted by the feds, causing Brian Albert to become so alarmed that he sent his brother, Canton police officer Kevin Albert, to inquire. Kevin Albert was conflicted off the case and should not have been participating. But it doesn't say when that was. Hang on. So then here's a Boston.com article. From March of 2024. But none of this says when Kevin Albert contacted Higgins to say, why are you blowing us off? We got federal subpoenas. So I just can't pinpoint the date in here. This is when David Yannetti, all right, I'm just going to pull this up because I know you like receipts, and so do I, because I just want to tell you what Boston.com reported, but it doesn't really give the date. This is an article from March 20th of 2024 on Boston.com. So it was before the first trial, and this was when David Yannetti was arguing to try and get the phone records. Oh, wait, this is the wrong article. The phone records of Brian Albert. March 20th of 2024. This was updated. In court Wednesday, attorney David Yannetti requested access to phone records between Albert and others connected to the case, meaning Brian Albert. He alleged that after receiving a subpoena to appear before a federal grand jury, Albert enlisted his brother Kevin, a Canton police officer, to reach out to Brian Higgins, a fellow witness who had stopped returning his calls. Higgins was reportedly inside Albert's home the night O'Keefe died. According to Yannetti, Brian Albert allegedly told the federal grand jury that Kevin Albert contacted Higgins and said, look, you went off the grid and Brian doesn't understand. You haven't called him. You haven't checked in on him since these subpoenas go out. Everyone's got a subpoena but you. Your Honor, there's only one way to interpret that, Yannetti said. Brian Albert was panicked that Brian Higgins had flipped on him. Brian Albert enlists his Canton police officer brother to contact Higgins to try and find out if that was the case. Your Honor, there's only one way to interpret that, Yannetti said. Brian Albert was panicked that Brian Higgins had flipped on him. Brian Albert enlists his Canton police officer brother to contact Higgins to try and find out if that was the case. Yannetti also alluded to an ongoing witness intimidation case against Turtle Boy blogger Aidan Carney, who's accused of harassing witnesses in the Reed case. My goodness, with all the allegations of witness intimidation thrown around by this DA's office and special prosecutors they appoint, why has Kevin Albert never been investigated for witness intimidation? Yannetti asked. And for that matter, why has Brian Albert never been investigated? This was all the way back in March of 2024, before trial number one. And of course, this motion was denied by Judge Cannoni to get Brian Albert's phone records. But again, there's no time frame here on when this exactly happened. And Greg Henning, who was the attorney for Brian Albert and also a legal commentator on one of the local Boston channels, I forget which one, Greg Henning says, yet Greg Henning, a lawyer for Brian Albert, said his client does not object to turning over the materials the defense requested. Brian Albert does not have anything to hide, he said. Oh, I guess it remains to be seen how well that is going to age. Muzzy is a retired cop, and as a retired cop, this discuss her. How dare they? Scott McGinnis is here, says Farwell was arrested in August of 2024. Yeah, this article just said last August, though, right? And we're in October, so it wasn't clear. They should have said August of 2024. By the feds, mainly because the Sandra Birchmore estate's civil suit was about to expose too much of the federal investigation into DA Meeple's office, so they were forced to. Thank you, Scott McGinnis. And so takes us back to Proctor turning off his GPS locator on the day that he says that they went to Sandwich to work on a cold case, him and Kevin Albert, in July of 2022. Roosevelt Media News says, I bet they went to Sandwich to make Higgins an offer he could not refuse. And that's what we were wondering. The victim smearing is outrageous. It is. All right. Moving on. We have Corey Hopkins has filed a lawsuit, as you know, or may know, against Norfolk County. And she's tweeted this out. This is yesterday. And so, if you haven't seen this, this is interesting. So let us check this out for a moment, shall we? She goes by Marbury v. Mad on the Twitter, and she says, yesterday, I sued Norfolk County DA's office to get the Reed trial sidebars under the public records law. SCOTUS and the SJC have held that the public has a First Amendment right to trial transcripts. Today, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office tells me that 1 week ago, they filed a motion in Reed's criminal case that could effectively keep the sidebars impounded, but that filing is hidden. It doesn't even appear as a line item on the Reed docket. Under Massachusetts law, the public has a right to seek to intervene in a case to challenge an impoundment order, but no one can intervene here because no one can see that Norfolk County District Attorney's Office filing even exists. What is going on here? Well, this reminds me of the filing that was made by Cosgrove to examine Karen Reed's phones that they still have in their custody from January of 2024, because it was filed under some unknown case number, a search warrant number. Nobody can find it in the docket. The shenanigans are continuing. And here's an email to Ms. Hopkins that she attached that says, Ms. Hopkins, it is my understanding that a motion was just filed with the court on October 28th. It just may not be uploaded into mass courts yet. I intend to serve our opposition to the motion for preliminary injunction pursuant to Rule 9A by November 10th. So Corey had to make a motion for a preliminary injunction because they're not responding to her lawsuit. And she said, I'll call the clerk's office this AM to try and get a copy of this motion filed in the Reed case, but it affects my case. And was told, quote, that case is sealed. We can't give out any information on it anymore, meaning the Reed case. What? That was tweeted today. Today's the 4th, 9:19 a.m. So, of course, you know, call me Alice and all. I had to go to the court docket on Karen Reed. And if you try and get into the Karen Reed docket, it now says this. I'm going to pull this up for you. And so the shenanigans are continuing because, of course, they are. I don't know when this happened because I don't remember it ever saying this before, but it says when you pull up the Karen Reed case, it says that the case is, look at this column, restricted. Restricted. The whole case is restricted. When did that happen? I'm sorry, what? So you can't get any of the documents on the Karen Reed case? Why? Case is over. Oops. I mean, it's bizarre, right? And this is Karen Reed's original case file. But the DA's office said that they're making a motion in the Karen Reed case. But when you go to look at the docket, the very last paper to come up in the docket is from July of 2025. So it hasn't been docketed. Hold on. See, the last thing in here, 985 of 985, July 31st, 2025, Victoria George to withdraw his counsel. It's the last thing in here. Hasn't been scanned. What is going on? Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. It is suspicious. It's completely suspicious. What is it that they don't want us to see in those sidebars? Why are they fighting Corey Hopkins so hard? How does this happen? I have so many questions. This is why we can't have nice things. When did Karen Reed's case file become restricted? I don't know. Shenanigans are continuing. But apparently, there's some confusion about, whether this entire thing was impounded at verdict. I don't. Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I said. The case is sealed. She can't give out any information. They can't give out any information anymore. That's what we're talking about. That's why we're so confused. I don't know. I guess we're going to have to look into it more and report back because I am just as confused as you are. But I wanted to bring it to your attention. So maybe you could help me find out. No, the sidebars aren't sealed because of the federal protective order. That has nothing to do with it. The federal protective order only had to do with, Lucy, it only had to do with the stuff that was turned over in the TUI dump. So the federal protective order does not have anything to do with sidebars. And sidebars are part of the public record. And the public has a right to trial transcripts. If they want to pay for them, they're allowed to get them. Sentencing right after verdict, clerk said it to Karen before sentencing. Not that they would. I don't know that they are allowed to do that. You know what I mean? I don't know that they're allowed to seal all of the motions and all of the filings in a case. I think maybe that was one thing that was going to be sealed. Like, I just don't know, Kelly. I just don't. You could be absolutely right. I just don't know. It wasn't sealed a week ago, says Strange Credulity. So I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. Suspicious minds, right? I don't know the answer yet. I don't know if we'll know an answer yet. Jackie said, became a member, welcome, that it would not be sealed unless she requested it not to be, that it would be sealed unless she requests that it not be sealed. But like the whole entire case? Sarah says, Jim said it at the end of the trial when he read all of that stuff off and he said it would be sealed after so many days unless Karen requested it, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I gotta dig into it more because I just don't have the correct answer for you. And I don't like to spread misinformation. And so I don't know. I don't know why a lawsuit to unimpound them would be unsuccessful, why they were making a motion. I just don't know. I need to find out more about it. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention so you could follow and try and find out with me when I have more time. Caustic became a member. Welcome. Thank you, Ronald Lopez, for your super sticker. T. Klein says, and Massachusetts is going after Turtle Boy for telling the truth. Thanks for your 10. And Gigi says, save this just to say thank you. Thank you for being here for 5 months. And thank you for everything you do tonight and every night that you're here. And Elf gifted a membership. Thank you. Caustic said, long time, first time. Now it's time to be a cupcake. Awesome. Welcome. I think you're going to like it here. And Jackie became a new member. Welcome. All right, you guys, I have a very, very, very busy next couple of days. So I don't know when I'm going to see you next. And so it could be a surprise. And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you've got your notifications set to all, that you've got your subscribe button and it's current and it's hit because YouTube has been unsubscribing people for, unknown reasons, nefarious purposes, in my opinion. And so you want to make sure you subscribe. You want to make sure you hit the like button and thank the moderators and have all of your notifications set because I don't know when you're going to see me next. I just don't know. because I have a very, very busy life outside of YouTube. I know. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? And there's no hearings that we're covering this week, so live. So I do have the time to, go about my life for at least a couple of days, maybe. But of course, if something breaks, and I can get back to you, I will. Of course, as always, you know that I would never desert you forever. But if you do not see me tomorrow, do not freak out. Okay. All right. Thank you so very much. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me tonight. For this very last minute live stream, because we had to catch up on these couple of things. Thank you to the moderators for keeping it classy. Thank you to each and every one. I am so grateful that you come to spend your day with me. I love you very, very, very much. Stay cool, stay kind, stay classy, stay above the fray. Watch out for this really weird full moon energy. And just remember, just because everyone else out there is going crazy doesn't mean that you have to go crazy too. Okay? Sometimes you got to just keep the faith. All right, you guys. Peace out. I love you. Bye.